On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur for what should have been a routine overnight flight to Beijing. On board were 239 people, 227 passengers, and 12 crew. Less than an hour after departure, the Boeing 777 disappeared from normal civilian tracking and began a chain of events that would become one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. More than a decade later, with debris found but the main wreckage still missing, MH370 remains a case suspended between evidence and uncertainty. The night everything changed. MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:42 a.m. local time. The aircraft climbed normally and proceeded toward waypoint Igari near the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. At 1:19 a.m., after being instructed to contact Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control, the cockpit signed off with the now famous final radio transmission, "Goodnight Malaysian 370." Minutes later, the aircraft's transponder stopped transmitting, and the jet vanished from civilian radar. That disappearance was the first reason the case became so unsettling. Commercial aircraft do not simply fade into silence under ordinary circumstances. Investigators later concluded that MH370 had not suffered a simple tracking glitch. Evidence showed the aircraft diverted from its filed route after Igari, and official analysis found the turnback was difficult to explain through abnormal system behavior alone. Flight simulator trials included in the Malaysian investigation indicated the turnback was made under manual control rather than autopilot. A plane that turned away from its destination. Military radar changed the picture entirely. Although civilian systems lost the aircraft, Malaysian military radar indicated MH370 turned back across the Malay Peninsula, traveled northwest, and then continued along a path consistent with a long flight away from its planned route. This finding transformed the case from a possible accident near the South China Sea into something far more complicated. It suggested that whoever or whatever redirected the aircraft did so with purpose. One of the most important technical clues came from satellite communications. Even after the aircraft disappeared from radar, automated exchanges continued between the plane and the Inmarsat satellite network. These handshakes did not provide a direct position like GPS, but they did prove that the aircraft remained powered and airborne for hours after it vanished from civilian tracking. Later analysis of those satellite exchanges became central to reconstructing the final phase of the flight and narrowing the search into the southern Indian Ocean. How the search moved across the ocean. In the first days, search efforts focused on the South China Sea and nearby waters because that was where MH370 was expected to be. But once radar and satellite evidence pointed away from the original route, the search expanded westward and then southward. On March 17, 2014, Malaysia asked Australia to assume responsibility for search operations in the southern Indian Ocean, because the most likely corridor now fell within Australia's search and rescue region. The scale of the effort was extraordinary. Surface vessels, military aircraft, sonar equipment, autonomous underwater vehicles, and international investigators were mobilized. The underwater search eventually covered more than 120,000 square kilometers of seabed under the ATSB-led operation. Later efforts pushed the total area searched to close to 200,000 square kilometers. Despite the scale, no main wreckage field was found. On January 17, 2017, Malaysia, Australia, and China announced the suspension of the official search pending new credible evidence. That suspension did not end the effort entirely. In 2018, Ocean Infinity carried out a second search on a no-find, no-fee basis, but that too ended without locating the aircraft. Malaysia later returned to the same model. On March 25, 2025, the government signed another agreement with Ocean Infinity for a new seabed search in a 15,000 square kilometer target area in the southern Indian Ocean, with a potential payment of $70 million only if wreckage was successfully found. According to Malaysia's March 2026 update, the 2025 to 2026 operation was conducted in 2 phases and formally surveyed about 7,571 square kilometers within the defined area. Ocean Infinity announced on March 8, 2026, that its latest mission had concluded after departing the search zone on January 23, 2026, again without finding the aircraft. The debris that proved the flight ended in the Indian Ocean. For more than a year, MH370 left behind no physical trace. Then, in July 2015, a wing flaperon washed ashore on Runyon Island in the western Indian Ocean. It became the first confirmed piece of the missing aircraft. That discovery mattered enormously because it provided the first hard proof that MH370 had ended in the Indian Ocean, not in Southeast Asia or on some hidden runway, as many conspiracy theories had suggested. Other suspected debris was later recovered from beaches and coastlines in Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, South Africa, and nearby regions. By the time Malaysian investigators summarized the evidence, 27 significant debris items had been examined. 3 were confirmed to be from MH370, 7 were classified as almost certain, 8 as highly likely, and 1 as likely. The drift of this debris also broadly aligned with modeling used to support the southern Indian Ocean search zone. Even so, the debris did not solve the central questions. It proved the aircraft came down in the ocean, but not why. Without the main fuselage, the flight data recorder, or the cockpit voice recorder, investigators could not reconstruct the final moments with certainty. That absence of evidence is the single biggest reason the case still feels unresolved. Theories, suspicions, and the limits of what we know. Because the wreckage has not been recovered, theories have filled the vacuum. Some focused on mechanical failure, including a fire. Others suggested hijacking, crew action, or gradual incapacitation from hypoxia. The official investigation did not conclusively support any single scenario. What it did say was important. The diversion after Igari was hard to attribute to anomalous system issues alone. No clear evidence showed financial stress or behavioral changes in the captain or first officer, and the investigation was unable to determine the real cause of the disappearance. That distinction matters. There is a difference between suspicion and proof. Public discussion often drifted towards certainty long before the evidence justified it, especially around the pilots. The investigation did review simulator data recovered from Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah's home setup, but the official findings did not establish a definitive premeditated route from that material. Nor did the final investigation identify a proven motive. In a case with so many missing pieces, strong theories remain theories unless the wreckage and recorders are recovered. Why MH370 still matters. MH370 is not just an old mystery. It remains a major aviation safety case because it exposed weaknesses in tracking, coordination, and emergency response. The ATSB and Malaysian reports both highlighted delays and shortcomings in air traffic control response during the early stages of the disappearance. The case also accelerated global discussion about real-time aircraft tracking and how the industry should respond when a wide-body jet disappears outside conventional surveillance. But beyond safety policy, the human dimension is what keeps MH370 alive in public memory. Families were never given the certainty that usually follows a disaster. No final crash site, no complete wreckage, no voice recorder, no definitive explanation. More than 12 years after the flight vanished, that lack of closure remains devastating. Even the newest search effort, ending in January 2026 without success, has not closed the book. It has only reinforced the same painful truth: the world knows much more about where MH370 likely went than about why it went there. If MH370 taught the world anything, it is that some mysteries do not fade with time, they only grow heavier. And until the final wreckage is found, the questions around that flight will keep haunting aviation history. If you want more deep dive stories like this, like and subscribe.